morning. Happy Thursday. I was just looking at the connection. It said we were low, but now we are green, so it's a go. Hope your Thursday is going well. I apologize if I seem a little slower this morning. I got up at dark 30 hour to drink a lot of water and prepare for this full abdominal and pelvic ultrasound. Good morning, Brian. It's one thing I've learned going through my own health stuff, my own low back issues, nerve issues, and other health diagnoses is that, and from my patients is, sometimes once we go through something, if we have an injury or, for example, a cancer diagnosis, like how sometimes it can be a ghost that follows us, and it doesn't mean that we're gonna, for example, injure our back again in the future if we have back injury now. Or in my case, it doesn't mean that I'll ever have to have cancer again in the future. However, there is this part of you that kind of is this vigilant ghost watching and observing, and in my case at times a little hyper vigilant to make sure that it hasn't returned. And there is this balance I'm finding of being responsible, good morning Elisa, and aware of what's going on in our health, in our body, and taking responsibility, but at the same time backing off some and knowing that we don't have control over everything. And it's really a mental trip, and it's one that I'm currently working on and learning, but this morning was just one of my health screens, so it always, whenever I go for a health screen, it kind of triggers some of my my thought patterns. So that is a whole other story for another day. Today we're going to talk about the compound effect, and I just released a podcast on this, an interview with physical therapist, and I need to tag her in the post, physical therapist and yoga teacher Barbara Schertz, and she is an amazing individual, beautiful soul if you've ever met her here in San Diego. And we talked about a variety of topics, but what I'm going to focus on here this morning is this compound effect. And what is it really? Essentially, it's setting a goal, which I'm sure we're all adults. We've heard at some point in our life, SMART goals. There's all these different philosophies of how to set goals, what type of goal, all this sort of thing. So let's apply this to health and wellness, since that's my field. Let's say, for example, you have some low back pain and you feel a little overwhelmed because you've been researching on Google, and you're kind of narrowing it down to possibly some sciatic pain, because you have pain down the leg, you have difficulty bending forward, or standing for long periods of time. You want to go to Legoland with your kids, but you're really worried because that means a whole day of being on your feet and walking around, and by the end you're just going to be in a world of hurting, yet you want to be a good parent and you really want to spend the time with your kids, right? That's a really realistic patient example of many people I get walking in the door here in the clinic. So here is a typical scenario. This individual is searching on Google, and they come across a whole bunch of information about sciatica, about nerve injury, about disc injury, about low back pain, and then they come across all these websites, maybe even including mine, with all this information. Strengthen your core, stretch your hamstrings, do this, don't do that, eat this, sleep this way, don't do that. So then they get completely overwhelmed. And sometimes in this instance, a lot of people just freeze, right? They're not sure who to trust, what to do, even how to tune in and listen to what their body may need. So eventually they might decide to take some sort of action, but it's a little scattered, right? Taking a piece of advice from this practitioner, seeing a chiro over here, maybe even coming into my office while still seeing a massage therapist, and reading all these blogs, and maybe even purchasing an online course, right? So what do we do when we have a very common scenario of low back pain? but a world of information, and you don't even know where to start. You have to narrow it down, because I find a lot of the times when people, they don't succeed in, reducing their low back pain, or it keeps coming back and coming back, or any health goal or even business goal, right? I am so guilty of this myself, is I veer off the path, right? It's defining a path for yourself of steps you need to take to get to a certain end result, right? But what happens a lot of the time is we start on the path, and then we see all these shiny objects that look pretty and sparkly and new, and it's hard work to stay on the path, truthfully. It's very uncomfortable mentally. It's very uncomfortable physically, right? A lot of the times, if we're coming back to the low back scenario, we're changing and moving our bodies in different ways, so our bodies can feel different. We have to, for example, slow down in our day-to-day movements and really tune in. Was that movement helpful? Was that movement hurting me? When does my pain actually occur? How long into sitting? What makes it feel better? Like, it really takes a lot of conscious effort to begin to peel back the layers, to really fine-tune this path that we have to walk on. And so we're walking on this uncomfortable path. Some people call it the yellow brick road, right? So we're Dorothy with low back pain now. We can have some red sparkly shoes too if you'd like. But we're walking on this super uncomfortable path. And in the meantime, all these sparkly, shiny objects are coming at us, either via Google. Maybe a friend is like, oh, I've tried that, it doesn't work. Try this instead, it's much easier. Or, oh, I have this much cheaper thing you can do. It'll get you results super quick, right? So then, good morning, Jen. We get distracted by all these shiny things and we veer off course. And that's usually when things go awry. So what I usually try to teach a lot of my patients and my clients in the clinic is defining the path. First of all, good morning. Second of all, is working with the mental component to stay on the path. So in some ways we have some blinders on so we can ignore the shiny objects and we have our purpose. And then when things start to feel uncomfortable or overwhelming, it's really breaking it down. So if you have one big goal, let's say the big goal is to go for a full day at Legoland with the ability when you get home to still make dinner and enjoy time with your family and not feel like you have to go onto the couch because you're in so much pain from being on your feet all day, right? So notice that my goal wasn't, I'm going to come home from Legoland and be completely pain-free. Sometimes that's just not realistic, especially in the beginning. Instead, my goal is still to be very present with my family when I come home from Legoland, still being able to be active and engaged with my family in Legoland and not stuck on the couch. I didn't say I'm going to be completely pain-free and doing cartwheels, so it was a realistic goal, right? Now, if that's my end result, what steps do I need to take in small increments to get myself there? So that's what I help a lot with in the clinic, is breaking down that what can seem like a very overwhelming goal into small concrete steps. So first of all, something super easy in the morning, like and Barbara and I talk about this in the podcast episode, is what's our hydration status? How much water are we drinking, right? Easy, something that you can make a change and will affect your health and overall healing. What's your morning routine like? What stretches can you add, or what strengthening can you add in a 15-minute home program that you can do consistently most days of the week? Because it's these small home programs, it's these small daily steps that if you take them consistency, will build one upon the other, and that gets you the compound effect. So if you're Dorothy on the yellow brick road, starting off in this very uncomfortable journey of making all these changes, but you stick with it, where you start off very slowly walking, the efficiency of doing these daily activities consistently can get you running and sprinting that much faster, because they build upon the self. But not to say, with the low back pain, with the sciatic nerve injury, that it's going to be like a light switch. In a couple weeks, you're just going to wake up and magically be completely pain-free. That's not the scenario either. Like, in terms of healing and growth, there are some, I don't want to put a glass ceiling on anybody's healing. There are some scenarios where it does happen really fast. Things comes together and it clicks, and you're able to, get that result faster than you think. However, a lot of the times it does take a bit of time. Structures of the body, especially the nerve and the disc, they take some time to heal. So it's learning how to find happiness and joy, even though you're still experiencing some of these symptoms. So your focus moves from the discomfort, so checking the body always for pain, for example, to now focusing on what brings you some joy and contentment, or, focusing on your work or your kids that can bring fulfillment and happiness. So that is the topic of today. If you want to hear more and Barbara's lovely perspective, and a bunch of other things we talked about, for example, if you're a healthcare provider considering moving to a cash-based practice and you want to hear another practitioner's journey, as she does kind of a hybrid of working for an insurance-based company and then starting her own cash PT, you can head over to the podcast and hear her journey and more on her insights on this compound effect. If you have any comments below, would like to share your stories or examples, please do. If not, I'll catch you next week. Have a great day. Bye.